Hi there everyone, today I'm reviewing Pax, War and Peace in Rome's Golden Age by Tom Holland. So, Tom Holland, historian and author, pens his latest book on Rome. I've been waiting for this one, and was keen to see how well he captured the year of 4 emperors and the Pax Romana, period of peace and stability despite several wars. The imperialism, discipline and integration, albeit usually forced, of Rome had managed to reach relative stability and prosperity, so I was interested to see how Holland would explore this apogee of the ancient superpower. And immediately Holland's writing is striking. It oftentimes reads more like fiction, which is a compliment here. So readable and fluent is the prose. He describes the views of the common man back to the arrogance and egos of the emperors, be they more or less deserving of that opinion of themselves, to the reception of local peoples, religions and cultures into a big melting pot of imperialism. It does not dart to these various angles, but instead flows effortlessly to them. We see Nero, back to Claudius, to bloody bouts in the Colosseum. We go to AD 69, or the year of 4 emperors, usually considered to be a low point of the empire, where ownership was disputed by various loyal armies, be they armies loyal to coin or to their general that they'd fought with on campaign. They were arrayed against each other and fluidly changing the power base within the space of a single year. This period of instability was perhaps necessary for Rome to get it out of her system, to have no leader rise up above the morass of suitors until they decided that the need was clear for a strong, good emperor in the vein of Marcus Aurelius, almost 100 years later. I'm going to open with a quote from the book here. So open quote. But then the Flavian onslaught had begun, and Vitellius, in a panic, had sent a frantic message to the Batavian cohorts, ordering them back to Italy. They had set out, but they were destined never to arrive. Messengers from the Rhine brought news to the capital that, devastating though it was, would not perhaps have come as a total surprise to fashionistas and their hairdressers. Every woman who used Batavian foam knew the score. There was always the risk, an exceedingly slight one, but a real one nevertheless, that the soap, rather than dyeing the hair a fetching shade of blonde, might singe it and destroy it and leave the user bald. Now, to the consternation of Vitellius and his command, it seems the military authorities on the Rhine were facing an analogous disaster. The Batavians, it was reported, had risen in revolt. End quote, and that's from track 13 on the audiobook of Pax. Holland's writing style isn't always to my taste in prior books that I've read, but this one really clicked with me. He reads the audiobook himself, and I found that several hours had passed before I realised. Always a good sign. Admittedly, I might be one of those people who loves the topic. It's a subject that's riveting to me. But he also demonstrates seamless ability to combine fact, fiction and perspective. Often you are left to decide what the truth is, and perhaps this writing isn't quite as rigorous as someone like Adrian Goldsworthy, whom I do tend to hold as the gold standard for writing on Rome. But to be sure, Holland's writing is perhaps the most engaging for an ancient history book. I think these aspects of style do gear this more to one not familiar with the history. The experienced reader may already know many of the facts and want to see a kind of deeper analysis and comparison of them. But that's not to say it neglects these aspects, merely that it has a lot of ground to cover before it can get to the period of peace that the title mentions. The instability and blood of the tumultuous periods are really complemented by Holland's descriptions. The vision of Nero's bulging eyes at his death, the massacre of Caesar's rampaging legions, the vicious ravaging and rape of Cremona in 69 AD. This is a visceral, no-holds-barred history, something which I believe is necessary. And it's necessary to remember the shadow before the peace to come. I open quote. The true measure of manhood, so the Romans believed, was the capacity to endure grim ordeals of exhaustion and blood. And Titus, by that reckoning, was proving himself the hero equal to any from their city's past, end quote, and that's from track 14 of the audiobook. Pax takes the reader on a journey then. It may not always be the most complex and intricate analysis of the emperors before, during, and after the Pax, for that would be prolix. But it is a carefully considered reconstruction of the blood, sweat, and trouble that the empire had to go through before peace was achieved. What were the various emperors dealing with? What did the common soldier aim for? Often everyone was aiming up. But ironically, Marcus Aurelius, who in his own writings showed a reluctance for rule, was arguably one of the most effective emperors. But the ambition of not only emperors but the common soldiers and their discipline certainly helped the empire expand so rapidly, whilst being perhaps at the same time a rod for its own back. Becoming so bloated and massive, it became unwieldy and impossible to manage. So in terms of final score, for those readers experienced on Rome, I'd recommend getting the audiobook. Think of it somewhere between a history and engaging narrative and treat it as such, and you'll probably love it. Treat it as another ancient history book to cover the period in intricate depth, and you might set yourself up for disappointment. For less experienced readers on ancient Rome and her emperors, it's an excellent choice. Although its focus does mean that perhaps it's not as easy to recommend as a book like SPQR by Mary Beard as an introduction. But this book has such good prose that it would be a good choice to read still. Holland strikes an excellent balance here, not neglecting religious, multicultural, multi-hierarchical or military aspects, but instead subsuming them into a riveting story. It's a story that takes you to a time of peace and prosperity that makes you wonder if any empire will achieve it again, and indeed, whether it was really a good thing given its temporary nature. Was all the blood and brutality to get there worth it? Regardless, this is a superb book, and although its approach might not be your favourite, it is undeniably skillful and adept work that I really enjoyed. So I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10. It's really strong. It might not be to everyone's tastes, but I think everyone has to admit it's really artfully written. So I'm reviewing plenty of books on Rome and other genres. I've got quite a backlog of books on Rome, so there'll be more to come. So like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.